Let's do this because this video could be incredibly long. Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella. Today we're going to be discussing the books I read in November, yes November, and December. We're combining the wrap up. November was a decent reading month for me. I think I completed 10-ish books, but ratings were literally all over the board. I think I gave every single rating that exists. December was not a great reading month. I think I got through 6 books. None of them were ones I was really supposed to be reading. Yeah, it was just a disaster. I have had no energy, but I'm hoping things are better. I also DNF'd 2 books, one in November and one in December. The one in November was a permanent DNF. That was Radiance by Catherine M. Valenti. I tried, listened to like a half hour of the audiobook and could not. So I just gave up with it. The other one that I DNF'd and I'm really upset about, but it is a put down for now, is A Desolation Called Peace. I'm just disappointed I had to DNF it, but I did not have the mental capacity to really understand what was going on. I think I made it about halfway through and just had to stop. We'll read this hopefully soon-ish. I will definitely start from the beginning because just nothing was sticking with me. A lot of these I think I'm gonna have to go through quickly because it's literally been 2 months since I've read them. So this will be interesting to say the least. The first book I read was I'm Afraid of Men by Vivek Shreya. This is an incredibly quick, bite-sized nonfiction about Vivek Shreya, who is a trans woman reflecting on just her life. I enjoyed this, but it is incredibly quick. There is not, I'm not going to say not depth, but it's not an in-depth look at it. It is bite-sized. It's quick and it balances between like anecdote and like societal commentary. I read this, like listened to it all in one shot and liked it, but I don't remember much about it, to be honest. I liked apparently the interesting discussions regarding gender roles and nonconformity. I had my wrap-up planned, by the way, like a month ago. I had everything written out. I just never filled it. So at least my notes for November were fresh. And I appreciate how she didn't just discuss men's role in like society and like gender conformity, but really talked about like cis women and how they are a big part of the problem. I enjoyed this. I don't rate nonfiction, but it was interesting and very quick. So that was good. The next thing I read, I think took me a while if I remember correctly because it was out of my comfort zone. That's Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. This tied for the Booker in 2019, I think. Also, geez, clearly you can tell I haven't filmed in a while. All the content warnings will be listed in the description. That's going to be a huge description. But anyway, I really enjoyed this. It's basically told in sets of 3s and it focuses mostly on women, but it focuses on 3 women who are more interconnected, but then there is a grander like sort of event that kind of ties them all together, which I really enjoyed. I liked that more than just following like random individuals. I liked that writing stylistic choice. And speaking of the writing, definitely threw me because there was no punctuation, but once I caught on, I was able to read with ease. It didn't really take me back. I did, from what I remember, really enjoy Bernadine Evaristo's prose. The characters were incredibly vivid, even though you get a real short time with a lot of them. They are leap off the page. I always wanted to know more about them, like in a good way. Every time I was reading them, I would get very invested in them and want almost a whole book's worth from them, or at least most of the characters. I didn't enjoy every perspective, obviously. I think there's at least 12 different people, but really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 stars. It was a surprise to me, but I'm very happy about it. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I went and read a terrible book. That's Intercepted by Alexa Martin. This book sucks. It's a contemporary sports romance. This one I remember because this one sucks, and it's definitely going to be featured on my worst of the year list. This follows a girl who's been dating a football player for a really long time, but he treats her badly, and then they break up pretty horribly. I think he cheats on her, and so she swears off all like sports, romance, and men and whatnot. Then she meets, I think, the quarterback of the same team that her ex-boyfriend is on, and they start up a romance. Cliche things happen, and this book is just bad. Starting with the writing is just bad. There's a lot of hashtags in here that really threw me for a loop and just take you out of the story. I just don't think it works in like a physical medium. Maybe on audio it's better, or like in a movie in that sense, but in print I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the writing style. I didn't think there was enough adequate description as to what was going on, and it's just a lot of like filler, which I can't stand. I didn't particularly care for the romance or the main characters at all. I thought the third act breakup was really dumb. Yeah, the villains were paper thin, not a whiff of depth or anything. They were literally just cardboard cutouts to be evil, like mean bitches. That's literally all they were there to be. I hated this book. I read it quickly though. Yeah, I read it in 2 days, but I hated it. It's easily consumable. Don't like the writing style. The characters weren't exciting at all, and the love interest had no depth to him as well. Anyway, I gave it 1 star. That book sucked. The next book I read, I'm so disappointed I didn't like, and I genuinely feel bad, but I just didn't jive with it. And it's sad. That's Elatsoe by Darcy Little Badger. This is definitely an unpopular opinion. Personally, did not like the writing style, so I just didn't enjoy listening to the story. But Elatsoe follows a girl named Elatsoe whose cousin is murdered, and she basically vows to get justice for his murder. It's set in a world where like there are other beings and individuals out in the open. We have vampires, like fae and all this kinds of stuff. That's definitely happening in the background, and she also has the ability to call ghosts. I didn't like this for 2 specific reasons. Like I mentioned, the writing didn't vibe with me. I don't know why it stuck out to me so much, but as I was listening to it, I didn't enjoy the writing, and it's like just absolutely a personal thing. It didn't work for me, which is sad. The other thing I didn't love about this was how straightforward of a story it was. Like in a whodunit, you find out whodunit really early, and I know that's not necessarily the point of the story. I don't know, it was so straightforward. It just wasn't super compelling to me in that aspect. I also would have liked a bit more development with the world. I thought that was really cool, how we're living in a world like ours but slightly different, and how all of different magical beings interact with like regular humans. I really liked learning about the Lipan Apache mythology that's woven in here, and a lot of history, but the writing really stuck out to me, and for whatever reason, so I ended up giving this 2 stars. I'm really disappointed. I'm sorry I didn't love it. The next book I'm going to talk about is a shock to me for how much I enjoyed it. I thought I was going to hate it, and I've put it off for literal years because I didn't think I would like it. But it's The Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman. I think this is set in like Victorian or Edwardian London, or Regency. Oh my god, I just said 3 different. It's Regency London. I said 3 different eras. Those eras don't really work well or separated well in my brain. But Regency London, where our main character is basically, I think, expected to find a good match, and she is really wanting to focus on that, and then she finds out that she is a part of a line of like demon hunters that really need her help because the demon population is really, really growing, and they're just only getting killed. But she has to keep that secret from the rest of her life, and that conflict really starts to butt heads, create a lot of problems for her. I really liked our main character. I like that she uses her wits and really values her brain and whatnot. I enjoyed the Regency aspects. I didn't used to love reading about that, but I don't know. There's something about the Bridgerton, the Pride and Prejudice, like, I like you, but I can't even be in the room with you, like that kind of stuff that apparently I like now. I liked the mythology behind like the demon hunting stuff, but a real big problem I had with this was how long it took to get to that. We know all of this because of the dust jacket mentions like what's coming up, but it takes like 150 pages to get cracking on that, and that didn't need to happen. You could have given me 50 pages and then gotten into the demon hunting stuff. I think that would have made that book significantly better and significantly like tightened up. I liked the vibes of the romance, but there is no like concrete romance just yet, but this is a trilogy. And I think if you like a misunderstood, brooding love interest, you might like him. I enjoyed this. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I do plan to continue on in the series, so color me shocked. I made the foolish decision to read these next 2 books in tandem, one via audio, one physically, and that was stupid. But anyway, I'm trying to get through these fast as well because I don't want this video to be the longest thing ever. I did complete, though, My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. Listened to this on audio, and I can't say enjoyed it. But this is an impactful book that I think is well written and well executed. And the controversy that was surrounding it, that people were trying to come at Russell with, is incredibly stupid. But anyway, this follows a dual timeline story who's reflecting back on the time that she had a relationship with her teacher when she was like 15 years old. And in the present timeline, the Me Too is becoming a really big thing, and her trying to determine whether or not she had been abused or not, in her opinion. This, I think, is incredibly well written, maturely written. It leaves enough up to the reader to like form their own opinions. It doesn't spell out anything to you, but it makes really clear what's going on and how abusive it is. This book was difficult to get through. There were times that I had to stop the audiobook because I was like, yeah, that's enough for today, because it was so disgusting and vile. Literally all the trigger warnings, please, for this one. Oh my God. I think the first half was slightly stronger than the second half. I felt the pace of it dragging slightly at the end there, and I think it could have been shortened by like even 25-50 pages, and that would have been a bit of a tighter story. I gave this 4 stars. It was really good, but difficult to get through. And I'm a moron because I read Know My Name at the same time I was reading My Dark Vanessa. This one took me so long, literally so many days to read, even though it's a short book, because it's nonfiction about Chanel Miller, who was previously known as Jane Doe in the Brock Turner rape case. And I knew about it. I knew about the case. I remember seeing updates and stuff about it, but reading the whole thing was so difficult and upsetting. And it really took me so much energy, and it just took so much out of me to read. But it was definitely worth reading. This was so difficult. I think Chanel Miller is a phenomenal writer. The way she puts together words to get across her point is fantastic. She's great at creating the atmosphere of where she is, and her description is fantastic. Because of that, this book is a colossal bummer, just to see how she was failed by literally almost everyone, and how like the system is so fucked in the States, but like she was literally let down so many times. And even though they technically got the conviction, but just seeing it all was so hard to read, and how Chanel was like coping. It was so hard. In the middle of the book, I was really, really wallowing while reading it. I was like, how on earth is this positive? This is literally like some of the like hardest things I've had to read, because it's based on real life. But towards the end, it does reach the hopeful note, but it took a lot longer. And like the places this goes, it's really dark, it's really hard, and it was upsetting. But this is an impactful story. It's definitely stuck with me. I don't know if I'll ever reread it again, just because there's so much. I then listened to Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a novella that I'm not going to explain the plot, because I think there's a lot of reveals and surprises in such a short book that I don't want to spoil at all. But it is set in like a futuristic-ish, I don't remember where in Africa, I'm sorry. I read this a while ago. Ghana? Might be a futuristic Ghana. I think this is incredibly unique and very vibrant. I love the futuristic elements of this. I loved the surrounding world and how it was like mildly disconcerting. You can tell things were going on that are really like weird and off-putting, but that's not like the main part of the story. I really liked our main character. Her plight is incredibly compelling. This reads almost like a folktale, and just with the atmosphere and sort of maybe like the lesson or the vibes going through it. I loved that just mysterious, off-putting air with the folktale vibes. This one really, really worked for me. I think this is a standout novella. I gave it 4 stars. Really excited to read more from Nnedi Okorafor. I'm very quickly going to talk about this. Amulet Volume 3. This volume in particularly felt like filler because there were some big events in the second one, and this one was literally just traveling from point A to point B to point C, and I just didn't super care. I did like the budding friendship, or like the allyship between, I just kicked my camera, but the budding allyship between like the former villain and our main character, like that relationship. I love the artwork in here. I think it's so stunning, and I really like the sweeping scope of this world. I gave this 3 stars though. I was supposed to read the 4th one in December and didn't, too, by the way. I couldn't get through. I had 2 graphic novels on my December TBR and couldn't get through either of them. The final thing I read in December though was a lot longer than I expected. Didn't know because I had an e-arc of it. And that's The Liar's Knot by M.A. Carrick. This is the sequel to The Mask of Mirrors, and it has only just occurred to me that I never wrote my review for it on NetGalley, and I finished it over a month ago. Yikes. Oops. As a sequel, I liked this. It does up the stakes, up the ante a little bit. Really, though, love the characters in here and the very complicated dynamics that are surrounding this. This is set in a sort of, I think, Venetian-inspired world. Follows like a very decadent society, but like criminal underbellies, and we're following a con woman who's kind of conning but not anymore, and I really just love the characters specifically. I just love all their dynamics and how they have to interact with each other in so many different ways. That I think is the best part, and definitely why I've continued on with the series, because the plot is not the most exciting thing to me. I find the story a little confusing to keep up with because of there's 50 million different identities going on. I really enjoyed the romance that develops in here. I liked the payoff of like waiting from book 1 to 2 and things being revealed. That I enjoyed a lot. I don't love the world building. I think the world in theory is cool, but I think there's too much going into it, and I have it described here as world building soup, like alphabet soup. There's just so much packed in here, and I think there's a lot of information that is given that's not relevant, and then also not enough relevant information given to the reader to get enough context as to what that is equivalent to like in our world. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Really liked it. World building's not my favorite. I will finish out the trilogy though. Okay, December. I read very little, so hopefully we'll get through this fast. The first being Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. Loved this. Super great. Also a novella. This follows a cleric who is traveling somewhere to get stories, and then they stop. I forget where they stop. Basically to get a story about the former empress, and the story is really cool. I really enjoyed the reveals throughout this really short book. Also, this reads again like a fable, a folktale. Love the vibes of it and the atmosphere. Super great. For such a short book or novella, I really enjoyed the storytelling and the plot elements. I'm really excited to continue on with the series, and I just think this is a solid read and fantastically executed as a novella. Really interested in the world. Yeah, and I gave it 4 stars. Moving on. Then read Braiding Sweetgrass. This is nonfiction that I did struggle to get through a little bit. She's an ecologist or studies plants and is a scientist. Then she also weaves in traditional indigenous knowledge throughout the book and balances back between anecdotes and then the knowledge. And just you learn a lot about plants, but then also about like community and things that are going on, and I did enjoy this. However, this topic, like plants and learning about them, is not like my number one be all and end all passion. So throughout the book, I started to lose a bit of steam with it. The audiobook is shockingly long for a book that's only 350 pages. So I just, even when I was speeding it up, I was starting to lose patience with it a little bit. I started to get a little bored. I don't know. I just think it went on a little too long, and some of the anecdotal parts could have been shortened a bit. I did like Robin Wall Kimmerer's, I don't think I mentioned her name before, but I did really like her writing. It's got a very whimsical element, and when she's discussing something she's so passionate about, that I think really comes through. I enjoyed this, got a lot out of it. It was slightly too long for me. The next book I completed was The Tourist Attraction by, I have no idea who it's by. Sarah something? You'll see it on the screen. I, ironically, picked this to read for my TBR, then took it off the TBR when filming said TBR to put something else on it, and then read this instead and did not read the proper TBR pick. So if that doesn't sum up my brain, I don't know what will. But this is a contemporary romance set in Alaska. Our main female character has wanted to go there literally her whole life. She loves it and saved up penny by penny to get there, and then she gets involved with a grumpy native who basically hates everything to do with the tourism. He literally owns a bar called the Tourist Trap or something like that, and he's real grumpy. And then they have a quick kind of sort of whirlwind vacation romance. And I didn't like this that much. This didn't give me the atmosphere I was wanting. I think Alaska could have been described a lot more and a lot more successfully to really hit on those wintry, cold vibes. You're literally describing Alaska. That's one of the coolest settings. I think the main conflict between them, which you could clearly suss out, was just brought up too many times because they choose to work past it, but then it's constantly on their minds, and that's constantly what he's fighting about with her. He's also way too aggressive. I think the romance itself was just very basic and underdeveloped. You don't even get them to see them talking about the basics and stuff, and then they're in love with each other by the end of 2 weeks. It just seemed like a lot. I gave it 2 stars. Didn't care about it. Moving on. Something I really liked, and something I did, which I literally haven't done in years, is I read Wolf by Wolf by Ryan Graudin, and then decided, instead of reading anything on my TBR, because clearly I didn't feel like reading anything else, I read the sequel, Blood for Blood, and I feel great. I think for you guys, hold on. There, that makes sense, I think. Anyway, this is a young adult alternate history duology in which the Axis powers won, and our main character, who is a face shifter, not a wolf shifter, I thought she was literally a wolf before, she's a face shifter, has to enter a motorcycle race so she can get close to Hitler so she can kill him and start up and reinvigorate the resistance. These were really good. I'm surprised how good they were. I was nervous the way things could have been described, and an alternate history book where Hitler's alive. There's a lot of care that had to be written with these. I think it's actually done very, very well. All the trigger warnings for this as well. Please be careful going into this. And I just appreciate it overall as a series so much. It's hard to separate them as individual installments because I read them back to back. I did like the sequel better because that ups the ante, and there's less motorcycle racing, which got a little tedious after a while because they're literally just racing on a bike. Really loved our main character. She is so incredibly strong, and what she goes through is so difficult to read, but her resilience is amazing and brilliant. I was really concerned by the romance and how things were hinted to in the first one, because literally follows a Jewish girl and a boy who grew up as a poster child for Nazi Germany, but I think it's treated and done so well, and I'm very impressed with that. I also really like Ryan Graudin's writing. Some of her prose and the way she captured how like the characters were feeling, and like the atmosphere, I think was incredibly well done. I was really struck by this. I gave this 4 stars, this one 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed the duology overall. It was satisfying, but really heartbreaking, but thankfully not an incredible tragic story. I just don't think it would have suited the story, even if that would have been more realistic, you know. I really enjoyed it. And the final thing I completed was The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. This is book 3 in the Wheel of Time series. I listened to the audiobook. I have to listen to the audiobooks or I'm not going to get through this series. And it's shocking to me how the literal titular character is not in this book at all, like barely. That just was an odd choice to me, but I'm not necessarily complaining because I don't know if I love The Dragon Reborn. This is the one book I forgot to write notes for, but I know I gave it 3 stars. I think there's a lot of regurgitation of plot points from books 1 and 2 in this one, so this doesn't make this a particularly great addition. The only thing that's really changed is one character's attitude, but like the plot itself for a certain character is basically the same. I did like Matt a lot more. Matt is a character I've absolutely fucking hated, but I did enjoy him a lot more, and I really liked the plot points with like the 3 girls. This is not entirely relevant if you've never read the series. I think I'm going to do a review on my opinions on books 1, 2, and 3 together, I think, in the coming month. I'm really tired of the gender dynamics though in this series. That's something that I think is honestly rant-worthy. Literally every time a man is thinking about a woman, he's like, that crazy woman, and women make no sense. And then the women are like, those dumb men. And I'm tired of it. It's so stereotypical and so over your head. And there are 2 characters that sound the exact same. Maybe because it's those inner thoughts, but I'm like, you 2 need to really differentiate yourselves. You're driving me crazy. But I gave this 3 stars. I am enjoying it as much as I complain. Like, I like how big the scope of the world is, but I don't know. Let's see. Book 4 better friggin' blow my socks off because of the way that everyone talks about it. I better really love book 4 or I might just quit. So those are the 16 odd books I've read in the past 2 months. I'm excited to be caught up for this, so I'm going to keep my outro nice and short. Let me know any standout reads you had in the last few months of the year. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being patient and coming back again and again because I keep falling off it. I really appreciate it, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.